Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics, and I am back at Brimfield Flea Market. You know, the biggest flea market in America that comes to Massachusetts 3 times a year. Well, I'm here for a 4th time this year, and I'm not in Massachusetts at all. I'm in Deerfield, New Hampshire, and that's because this is Brimfield North. Brimfield not only does the big flea markets down in Massachusetts, but they're branching out and doing flea markets all over the Northeast, and this is actually the biggest flea market in New Hampshire. So it's close to Halloween. There's lots of weird and wonderful and strange things here, so let's hunt for some strange and unusual things and hopefully find some comic books as well. Quick editor's note, there was a lot of music playing in the background of this flea market that was copyrighted, and that's also true of the second location you'll see in this video. On top of that, it was really windy this day and messing around with my microphone. So as much as I'd love to give you the ambient sounds of a beautiful New England fall flea market, instead here is some idyllic walking music. I hope you don't mind. Just sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the footage. All right, so far lots of cool, interesting antiques, but not many comic books. Let's keep going, never know. So yes, I did just buy a Wolverine costume. It's in a Power Ranger bag, but it's definitely Wolverine. I think I can get some mileage out of this one, guys. Well, I got a couple of comic books. At least I got something so far. A few more places to check, guys. Never know. Gotta keep looking. Okay guys, not a ton of luck. There weren't a lot of comic books there. Lots of really cool odds and ends I was interested in. I did get a couple of comic books and a couple of really strange things, but that's okay. The day's not a bust. It's a beautiful fall day, and there's actually several other places nearby, indoor flea markets, antique shops I've been meaning to go to for a while. So I'm gonna take advantage of being in the Granite State and check out a few more places. See you guys in the next one. Okay guys, here I am at my second stop, which is 101A Antiques and Collectibles in Amherst, New Hampshire. A buddy of mine, Sean, actually sells here, and he bought some comic books from me earlier this year. I've been meaning to stop in and check out the store. Let's see what we can find. So I finally found Sean's booth, and I was not expecting the caliber of comic books that he had. You see there were some fantastic ones in here, guys. First appearance of Gambit, first Rhino, X-Men Days of Future Past. Actually, he had lots of great X-Men books. First Rocket Raccoon. And at the bottom of his case, he had all of these short boxes, which were full of great stuff. I had to ask someone to unlock the case to look at them, which you'll see in a second, but excellent books in there. He also had some slab books, like this first appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He also had ASM 300, first appearance of Venom, first appearance of Darkseid. But this top shelf, guys, awesome books. He had Batman 227, famous Neil Adams cover, first appearance of Man-Bat, and what I think was the best book in here, Amazing Spider-Man number 121, The Death of Gwen Stacy. Though come to find out, it did have a detached cover, but it presented great, and his prices were fantastic. So that was definitely a worthwhile stop, guys. Like I said, I happen to know the guy who owns all those comic books. There were several that I really wanted, so I had the store contact him, and we made a deal for a couple of awesome comic books. So let's head home, guys. I'll show you everything that I got on my day hunting for comic books in New Hampshire. The things I will do for a laugh on this channel. Listen, guys, you saw me buy a superhero costume in the footage. Admit it, there was no way any of you would let me live it down if I didn't actually put it on for the video. And as it was, I had just bought these claws a few days before. You know, here I am a few weeks before Halloween, and I see a Wolverine costume, missing its mask, of course, but it was $10. I had to get it, right? And then I realized that this video would be dropping right before Halloween, so I knew exactly what I had to do, and you guessed it, hit the gym hard to try to fill this bad boy out. You know, high protein diet, really bulked up, and you can see now I have a chest that would make even Rob Liefeld jealous. Head on down to the comments and let me know if you understand that joke. In all seriousness, guys, that was Brimfield North Flea Market. Like I said, the Brimfield Flea Market in Massachusetts is trying to kind of like use its brand name recognition to expand all over the Northeast. And this was a pretty good flea market. You could tell it was relatively new because it was a good size, but not gigantic. You know, there weren't a ton of sellers, certainly not as big as a lot of the other New England flea markets. On top of that, they sort of marketed it as a Halloween-themed flea market. You guys saw the kind of like the haunted house that they had in there, and they encouraged people to bring like creepy things for Halloween, Halloween decorations, skulls, things like that. So yeah, it was very cool, and I like creepy and weird things, but there were not a lot of comic books. Still, I found a couple comic books that were worth picking up, and I want to show you guys. But it was that next location, that indoor flea market, where I really got a couple things that are quite special that I'm very excited to share with you. So before I do, guys, if you like this sort of stuff and you appreciate the really stupid things I do for your entertainment, head on down, like, comment, and subscribe, and of course follow me on Instagram under Lunch Money Comics IG. Listen, guys, I would love to stay in this costume for the whole video, but there's no way you guys would take me seriously, and also it's really hot. There's so much padding in this, I am sweating right now. So I'm gonna go change, and I'll see you back here in a second. Much better. Sorry I had to take off the costume, guys, but I put on a Wolfman shirt to make up for the Halloween decor. Also, I had so much gel in my hair that short of taking a full shower right now, I just have to put on my lucky cap for the rest of the video. The hair is, in fact, that bad. So like I said, guys, at Brimfield North, it was more of an antique show, and there really were not that many comic books. There were more comic books than I think I let on in the footage. I found some on the way out. I didn't even bother filming. But all the comic books I found were either, you know, bad 90s stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know, titles that no one collects, or people were overcharging for them, you know, and the price did not match the quality of the book. But there were two comic books that I thought were not only great, but the prices were also fantastic. And the first one is this. So this is Modeling with Millie, number 31 from 1964. And this is another one of those comedy romance series starring a female protagonist that Marvel Comics had through the 60s, but also the 50s and the 40s, back when they were Atlas and Timely Comics. And all of these female protagonists, you know, sort of had alliterative names that told you exactly what they did for a profession. So you have Millie the model, you had Tessie the typist, you had Nellie the nurse. But of all of those female characters, the longest running series Marvel had was Millie the Model, running from the 40s all the way through at least the 60s. Yeah, and I see these books every now and then. But what's really interesting about these stories is, because it was Marvel Comics, and before that, Timely and Atlas, the editor-in-chief was Stan Lee, and he also wrote a ton of these issues, and he did, in fact, write this comic book right here. There's actually two stories in here written by Stan Lee, pencils done by Stan Goldberg, who also, I think, did the cover. And yeah, this is a really cool cover. Most of the ones in these series kind of look more cartoony. I thought this looked more like a romance novel, and I thought it was fantastic. I know a lot of people who collect these. They're a great snapshot in time. I thought it was pretty cool, guys. I love these comic books that sort of not only appeal to, you know, boys, they were trying to appeal to young girls as well. Thought this was pretty fantastic. Best part was, it was $2. Totally worth picking up for $2. But a few issues under this, I found another comic worth picking up. Almost the exact same title. So this one is slightly different. This is the new Millie the model. This one is number 164. It's from 1968, so 4 years later. And you see the style has changed. Not only has the title changed, but we have more of a cartoony style, more in line with, say, Archie or Pep or Laugh, any of those issues there. But what really appealed to me about this particular issue is that I like the fact there's a band there, right? It kind of reminded me of sort of like the Beatles or the Monkees, you know, those bands that were big, obviously, in the 60s. And I thought it was definitely worth picking up. I thought it made it a little bit more collectible. And just like that last book, 2 stories in here. At least one of them is written by Stan Lee with Stan Goldberg pencils. So this was also $2. So guys, honestly, I think these are really, really cool. I probably would have picked these up even if they were like $5 or so. I thought they were pretty awesome. And I also like the fact that they have different styles, even 4 years apart. So yeah, pretty cool. This is the only thing I actually got at that first flea market, which is why I had to go to a few other places. So the next place I went to, guys, definitely a different story. So after I left that outdoor flea market, I actually got a chance to stop at some yard sales on my way to the next location. I didn't find anything good, guys, but I just wanted to remind everyone that the key to finding good stuff is just to keep trying. And as a matter of fact, when I went to those yard sales, I even asked the people there, hey, do you have comic books? No such luck, but still, guys, I had a pretty great morning. I went to an outdoor flea market, then some yard sales. Still didn't quite get the big books I wanted, which brought me to this last place, and I definitely hit pay dirt. And that last place was called 101A Antiques in Amherst, New Hampshire. Now, I call these types of places an indoor flea market or a consignment shop, but I've noticed since I started my channel that people call them very different things. Whether you're in the United States, different places, or all over the world, we all call them something different. Some people call them antique malls, just antique stores, junk stores. Let me know down in the comments what you call them in your neck of the woods. Regardless of what you call them, they all sort of have the same premise. You know, it's a storefront that has lots of different booths inside, and people rent out those booths to put their stuff in it. And I love going to these places because you almost always find at least a couple people with comic books. But in this particular case, I knew there would be comic books because, like I said in the footage, I know a guy who sets up there. His name is Sean, and he usually goes to flea markets either as a buyer or a seller all over Massachusetts. I've met him many times. I bought comic books from him, and he's bought comic books from me. As a matter of fact, I featured him over the summer in one of my videos, and he actually did a plug for this location and his booth. So it's not exactly near me. I had to be in New Hampshire to have a reason to stop by. So since I definitely did. And guys, I am very happy that I stopped by because you can see he had some pretty awesome comic books. Not only were they good, but his prices were fantastic. And he had a ton of stuff that I wanted. You guys saw he had an Amazing Spider-Man number 121, The Death of Gwen Stacy. Beautiful looking copy, but it did have a detached cover. Still, I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting it because I think his price was excellent. He also had a Batman 227 famous Neil Adams cover. Again, crazy good price. So I had the guy who works there open up the case so I could look at some of these books. I did find a book down in the boxes down below and one bigger one he had up on the shelf. So let me show you the small book first, and I'll tell you what I paid for all these at the end because there's definitely a string attached to what I paid. So the first book I got was this. So this is X-Men King Size Annual number 3. It's from 1979. And the reason I got this, guys, is because everyone knows I'm a big X-Men fan and I'm finishing the Chris Claremont run. And very recently, I was down to 7 books I need to finish that run in the main sequence. But there are also 3 annuals that I need, and this is the very first one. So Chris Claremont wrote it. However, even though this isn't really like a key issue, there are some pretty cool comic history things going on with this. Number 1, this cover right here was done by a very young Frank Miller. Like when he was like 21 or 22 years old. How cool is that? And also, normally the person who worked on these books back then with Claremont was Byrne or Cockrum. In this case, the interior pencils were done by George Perez. So pretty cool, guys. Just to have it kind of mix up the main, guys who always worked on these X-Men runs. Yeah, Chris Claremont, of course, is the common thread, but a lot of very famous people worked on these X-Men titles. So very happy to add this to my Chris Claremont run. But the last book, guys, I needed one big book on the day. Absolutely did. And the one I settled on was this. This is Marvel Superheroes number 18 from 1969. Story by Arnold Drake, art by Gene Colan and Mike Esposito. And of course, this is the first appearance of the team, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's the first appearance of all of the characters you know and love from the MCU, like Charlie 27 and Martin X and Vance Astro and Yondu. Right. If you only know the Guardians of the Galaxy from the MCU, You're not going to know many of those names, although a couple of these guys did have cameos in the MCU. And of course, Yondu is the big one you should recognize, although he is very different in the comic books. But yeah, that modern iteration that has, all the characters we know and love, like Star-Lord, Groot, Drax, Nebula, Gamora, they didn't come about until the 2000s. For a long time, this was the Guardians of the Galaxy, these very minor characters, and they added other characters to their roster. But for the most part, they were a lesser known property. I remember when I was collecting in the early 90s, they tried kind of like rebooting them and making them popular again. I had a friend who was into them, but I just wasn't into the Guardians guys. However, I've always liked the old Guardians of the Galaxy for one very big reason. I love old space stuff. I love the aesthetic of the old B movies, sci-fi TV shows that were on early on those Saturday mornings. I used to watch reruns of Lost in Space with my mom. I love the look of those sci-fi shows, and seeing how people envision space travel where, yeah, they're in outer space, but clearly it's like 1960s technology, analog technology and things like that. I love that stuff. I love the fact that the aliens are guys in rubber suits. It's cool. I've always loved it, and man, Guardians of the Galaxy absolutely screams that. I mean, look at these guys. How hokey do they look? They look kind of nerdy, and they're walking on this sort of planetoid down here. But even the trade dress, it looks kind of like Battlestar Galactica. I love the aesthetic of this old sci-fi stuff, guys, which is why I've always been looking for this book. And it's sort of an added bonus. I do have several of these characters in the Marvel trading cards I love. So I can say I have their first appearances. But yeah, I've been eyeing this book in a low grade because I don't need a good one. So this is priced at $140, which I thought was good to begin with, let alone the fact it's already slabbed. But I still thought I could get a better deal. So I grabbed these two books. This was, again, $140, and this one was marked at $6. I had the guy who works there. I contacted Sean. Sean called back, and this guy relayed messages through the phone to me. And so he called to me from behind the counter, and he said, Sean has a proposition for you. Sean will sell both of these to you for a total of $110 on the condition that I mention him on the channel. So I'm mentioning him and this place, 101A Antiques, on the channel. I do have a secret for you guys, though. I was already going to mention the place on the video, but that's okay, Sean. You're getting a super extra good plug here. Guys, there's going to be some sort of perks to having a YouTube channel, and this is mine. I get good deals for basically doing a mini commercial sometimes. So yeah, super happy to get both of these, but yeah, I mean, guys, obviously this is a great deal to get this book for essentially $110. Like I said, it definitely goes more for this. And one more thing, this is graded. Obviously, it's a 4.0 in the slab. And obviously that adds a little bit more of the value to the book to some people. I got to point something out though. A lot of times people love getting graded books if it's a low grade, but it presents well. Like if it's a 2.5, but the cover's great because there's like a tear on the back. People love doing that because you pay less for the slab, but you still have a great presenting comic book. This book is the opposite. So this grades at a 4.0. This thing looks like a 2.5, guys, and that's because it was never cleaned or pressed. It's very evident, especially on the back. Never cleaned or pressed. So this might be one of those books that's a prime candidate for a crack, clean, and a press by my buddy Jeff at Comic Spa. Who knows? I'm fine with it slabbed. I'm fine with it loose. It doesn't really matter to me, guys. I'm just happy to get it for such a great price. So thank you so much, Sean, for selling these comic books to me. Once again, guys, I'll put a link down in the description to this location. If you're going to go, I would go quick because a lot of times when I mention these places, they tend to get kind of like bought out after I mention them, especially at the prices that Sean had. And as a matter of fact, a couple of those books, I kind of want to go back and get myself. So if you do go there to check out his booth, you might even bump into me. So there you go. That was my really fun morning hunting for comic books at 2 flea markets in the beautiful state of New Hampshire. Head on down to the comments and let me know what you think of it all. What do you think of the footage? What do you think of the comic books I picked up? And do you think I got them for a good price? Also, thank you guys so much for indulging my bit of Halloween silliness in the beginning. I actually had a lot of fun filming that. In the meantime, guys, I hope you keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places as well, because as you can tell from my videos, guys, these comic books are out there and there are great deals to be had. You just got to keep looking. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very safe and happy Halloween.